January. It was a very eye-opening and interesting convention. Let me just go back. I'll tell you what the purpose of the convention is. I received an email, I think back in December or November, from Sheriff Richard Mack, who started this Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And I was contemplating on whether or not I could go. It was free. They raised money and they invited every sheriff in the country. Obviously, it was going to be limited, but it was first come, first serve. And I went back and I looked today, and I received an email from Gigi on December 23rd asking me, urging me to attend this conference that her friend Sheriff Richard Mack was hosting in Las Vegas. And I said I was working on it, I was able to attend on January 30th. And the purpose of the convention was to increase the understanding and awareness for all sheriffs regarding the true power of our constitutional authority and our duty to protect and serve the people whom we work for. And it was also to unite in concerted effort to uphold and defend the Constitution. And the program, it was a very intense program. This is the program that they handed out here. It was a one-day conference. It was actually a two-day, but the second day was more inviting some of the public in, and it wasn't so much educational as the first day. So I actually flew out on Sunday, the 29th, and because of issues with the airline, I wound up getting there around midnight. And the conference started at 7 a.m. on Monday. So we had a full day. We went to 8:45, and then I got on a red eye Monday night at 11 o'clock to come home. So it was very, it was tough. They made my travel arrangements, so I'll forgive them. It was, after all, it was paid for by donations from people like you. 115 sheriffs attended. Unfortunately, I'm proud to say that I was the only one from New York, but it was also very disappointing that nobody else from New York decided to attend. As a matter of fact, there weren't many from the Northeast there at all. I think the closest sheriff was a sheriff from Delaware, where there are only 3 sheriffs, and his office, he came really because his office is under attack by the state. They're trying to take say he has no arrest powers, and the Attorney General in that state is the one issuing all these opinions, and it's Joe Biden's son. So I'm going to give you an idea of what the federal government thinks about constitutionally elected officers.
But Joe Biden stands to inherit that office, so Obama's constitutionally responsible.
So let me get back to the agenda. So some of the things that we talked about were really some of the basic things, which are oath of office, oath of office, the Bill of Rights, property rights, Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment, which I'll be honest with you, I had a big education in, and that's, people here, are you guys familiar with nullification in a position? Well, I can tell you I really wasn't. All right, so I really learned something about nullification and the history of nullification, and it really opened my eyes to really state rights, which I did know a little about, but not to the extent that I got there. Unfortunately, it was a crash course, and there's a lot of information to take in one day, where I got in at midnight and was on a flight at 11 p.m. the next day. But my first introduction to Sheriff Richard Mack, everybody's pretty familiar with him. You've heard of him, I'm sure, right? A great man, really is. Is a constituent who lives in Huntington, and I forgot his name. I was hoping he'd be here, and I guess he's not, because he would remember. In 2009, Sheriff Mack wrote a book called County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Some of you may have read it. And he started a project where he wanted every county sheriff to get this book, and he was counting on the constituents of the sheriffs to get them a copy. And people bought the book. This particular gentleman called up my office, asked my secretary to get on an appointment with me, wanted to see me, wanted to talk to me about the Constitution. He had a book for me. He came in one day, we had a nice chat, he gave me the book. I went home that night. It's 50 pages, the best 50 pages I ever read in my life. And I read it in one night, and it really opened up my eyes to some things that I was doing my whole law enforcement career of 16 years. Goes on all around us, all around the country, and it really made me reevaluate what my real beliefs were about the role of law enforcement and my role as an elected official and a constitutionally elected official. My authority comes from the state constitution. Myself, the DA, and the county clerk are all state constitutional officers. We're independently elected officials. We're not appointed officials. I work for you. I work directly for you. I don't take orders from anybody but you. And if I choose to ignore you, you'll vote me out of office. That's the truth. And I always think of myself, and I always try to be accessible to my constituents. That's how this gentleman came to see me. I don't know how many people would get in to see the county executive or a state senator or a U.S. senator. You get to meet with someone from their staff. But if somebody wants to see me, they get to see me, especially if they have a problem. And just last week, I had a meeting with a gentleman who wrote me a letter. He was very concerned. So I do the pistol licensing for the 5 eastern towns. The county police do it for the 5 western towns. And this particular gentleman had his pistol license lapse. And he felt that it was the sheriff's office fault and he was being wronged and being ignored by a person who worked in my pistol license bureau. So I said, come on in and we'll talk about it. He came in and you know what? He was 100% right. And we took care of that. And, so you all know, if you ever feel the need to come and see me, I'd welcome it. Doesn't even have to come out to my office. I know it's far, Riverhead's far from everywhere. But when I grab a cup of coffee somewhere, I live in Huntington, we can meet anywhere in between. I enjoy it. I actually enjoy it. I like to hear and see what's going on and, tell me what I can do better, what I can do to help. But anyway, getting back to the convention, I said that the nullification thing, the 10th Amendment is where all this stuff comes from, really got me interested and really had my attention on this. And I took lots of notes. Unfortunately, I can't read them all because I was writing so fast. But it really opened up my eyes, and I started looking into a lot of things that were going on in our country now, and a lot of states that are trying to interpose on behalf of their citizens and stop the federal government from doing things that the Constitution gives them no authority to do. And I was looking at up a couple of them, and a few of them are like the TSA. There are a bunch of states who think the TSA should not exist, and they have no right to pat us down and do full body scans and expose our bodies. You guys familiar with the National Defense Authorization Act? Scary stuff, right? And I'll be honest, I never heard of it until I went to this convention in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Never heard of it. Wow. Blew my mind. Yes, sir?
With the ADAA, do you have the power to stop them from coming into our home and renting us?
Yep. Well, I believe I do.
Good.
Would you be my neighbor?
We're all neighbors. But another one I found interesting, and it was brought up at the conference, was the whole concept of the Federal Reserve and where did that come from. And there are some states who are going back to what the Constitution says about legal tender, that states can have legal tender, gold or silver, or paper backed by gold and silver. So I found it interesting when I looked that there are states that are actually challenging this. So, I can go on and on about the nullification stuff, but you seem like you're pretty onto it. So it's very interesting what's going on, and you really do need that check and that balance. Very interesting. A couple of other things that I wanted to talk to you about. After the gentleman came to my office and brought me the book, and I think it was 2009, I was asked by a county legislator to fill in for him over at Farmingdale College. Every year he speaks in front of a class that's given there about the Constitution. And I said, wow, what a coincidence. I just read this book and I'm really reevaluating some of my thoughts and some of the practices we do in law enforcement. What a great thing. I'd love to do it. So I went over to Farmingdale, and I was in an auditorium, a little bigger than this. And I figured I just wanted to give the students, I didn't know the professor, I never met any students, I wanted to give them some things to think about that they'd probably be shocked hearing from a law enforcement officer. So I started talking to them about checkpoints and being stopped at a checkpoint and being asked to get out of your vehicle and hand over your papers, your license, your registration, and I didn't give them my opinion of anything. I just said, I really want you to think about it and what the Fourth Amendment says about unlawful search and seizure, and just give them things to think about. So looking at the professor, and he's looking at me like a little strange, and then I started talking about traffic summonses and the fines and the surcharges that are on them, excessive bails and fines. It's another amendment to the Constitution. And I said, think about it. All governments ever do is raise the fines and the surcharges. It's so much so that the surcharges are more than the fines now.
Correct.
It's all about revenue, and that's the bottom line. I said, just really one of the things to think about. And the professor, stuck his hand up. He said, "You're one of those libertarians." And, I'm like, well, you don't have to label me, and I don't want to be. I'm not going to tell you I'm a libertarian. I'm not going to. But I mean, this is what he was doing. I said, listen, sir, I'm just throwing out ideas that I think people should think about. And, I'm not trying to force my opinions on them. I'm not even saying these are my opinions. I just think that the students should think about these things. And he was getting a little hostile here and there about this type of stuff. And so it really makes me wonder what he's really teaching in the class.
This was a brainwashing. Is this constitutional law, Professor?
I don't even, it was a class about the Constitution. I was filling in for someone. I didn't get the background of the class. He didn't stick around and talk to me afterwards either. So, so I really never got to. I did get, it was like an hour-long thing. I did get a lot of points in, but it was mostly just giving them. I just wanted them to think about different things, and that's. And obviously, these are things that they were never, that they were never being taught. So. So anyway, another thing we did out in Vegas too is really think about what the difference between rights and privileges are. And your rights are things that really can't be taken away. Rights are derived from property. They imply responsibility. And the only limitation on your rights is the equal rights of others. Mm-hmm. You can't infringe on other people's rights. They can't be revoked, but privileges can. And it was the people that created state government. The states created the federal government. And the only role of government is to protect life, liberty, and private property. And, I said, what do you mean private property? And it turned into a whole big thing because a lot of things we don't hear about public land out west and people who try to use the public land and get a lot of or who've been on the public land forever, whether it's raising cattle or chopping firewood, whatever the case may be, and then you have the U.S. Forestry Service or the Bureau of Land Management who come in and probably legally can't throw you out, but create roadblocks so you can't access the land, and there have been a few sheriffs out west who have interposed on behalf of their constituents and told the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Forest Service, if you come back here again, you're going to be arrested.
Good.
And they go away. It's amazing. But these are things we don't hear about, things that you don't see here in the Northeast.
We've seen something like that here. There was a town that, a village that incorporated for the purpose of hiring a constable to keep the wildlife service from marking off their beaches so no one could possibly trample on a piping clover egg. So during the entire beach season, they were putting yellow tape over the beaches and telling the residents they couldn't walk over to the water. The constable actually stopped them, forgetting the name of the village.
Is it West Hampton Dunes?
Could be, yeah. So it does happen in the Northeast. You're on
Yeah, but things you don't hear about.
those piping plovers then fly to South America and are used for food.
Given up use.
Sir?
Yes, recently there was a showing of a movie called Farmageddon. And Farmageddon was showing
Some arts.
Well, basically what it was showing was SWAT teaming people with what do they call it? The warrant said raw milk.
Oh, this is the, is this in Wisconsin, right, with the Amish? Or Indiana?
It's Ohio.
Oh, sorry.
It's going on everywhere.
There was an incident in New York, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the name of the department in New York State, it's actually a department up in Albany, and it says the Department of Agriculture and Markets. And what I would hope is that because of where you're located, and that there are family farms, and there really is a war against the family farmer, and to replace it with corporate farms, that you would protect them from getting SWAT team on what comes out to be not a law but a regulation or a code. And furthermore, even if somebody's in the wrong, that which is enforcement is, you know, for example, you wouldn't want somebody to be SWAT team because they changed lanes without a direction. Just give them a ticket, let them go on its way. And so therefore, it's not only, first off, protecting the rights, but even if somebody's in the wrong, they have a right not to be SWAT team if they're not showing any real threat.
Right, well, a lot of these things that are happening, here you said they had a warrant from a lot of these things that I have heard that are coming from agencies who have no warrants. Like, for instance, something I've been paying attention to is out east with the DEC with the fish seizures.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting. So it's the state DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, who is just going in, seizing fish without a warrant, selling the fish and keeping the money.
Now, is that your job to stop them? Like, can you stop them?
I'm looking into it right now. I mean, a lot of the things that we've talked about are the federal government encroaching on the state. Here we have the state. It's very interesting, so.
Yeah, the state's police powers are not as limited as the federal government's police powers by the federal constitution.
But the whole idea of warrantless seizures, though, is
Yeah.
very, very interesting. And I'm trying to look into the history of the DEC and their formation and the legislation that created them. It's actually, I think I remember reading, I think today in Newsday there was an editorial about it, so you probably know where they went with that, though.
Yeah. In Newsday, I think it was last week, in Nassau County, there was an announcement of a lawsuit filed by the family members. Some kid went to his parents' house. He had some small amount of marijuana on him or whatever, and next thing you know, like in the report, it was 60 to 80 police officers showed up, SWAT, everything else. The kid didn't want to have all this go down at his parents' house, so he snuck out the back. They shot him dead. And it was just in Newsday. I can't believe that anyone hasn't heard
I think that was the same one where an officer wound up being killed at the scene too by another officer, right? Was that the same?
No, this was
the son. He was in the house in the bedroom.
Was hopped out the window,
Right.
and then the SWAT team shot him dead over a bag of weed. You know, that's
Nassau County.
yeah, it was Nassau County. So I mean, anyhow. What? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember that
It was
particular one.
I'm
But,
just
yeah.
saying, you talk about excessive,
Right.
SWAT teams and everything showing up, and it's just, you keep seeing so many shootings going on now, whether it be in the city or up in Westchester and stuff like that. It's like, why don't they have tasers. I thought the idea of tasers was that you didn't shoot people dead, but they don't seem to use their tasers, they just use their guns.
Yeah, I will say that, unless you're in that situation, it's hard to tell a taser, the range of a taser, and it's, you really have to be in the situation to know.
The one you're
But still
thinking,
an unarmed person being shot
Yeah.
dead.
the one you're
That's-
thinking
well,
of
that's
was
the
in
point. You're only supposed to use
East
deadly-
Meadow. It was in East
East
Meadow
Meadow.
where the cop got shot and.
Right, it was
Yeah,
that
that
one,
was
right, that's
East
what I
Meadow.
thought.
That was in a parking lot, actually.
So we need the Nassau County Sheriff to go learn from.
Well, here's something interesting for you. The Nassau County Sheriff isn't even elected. He's appointed.
He's appointed.
The,
Yes, he
uh,
is.
How that happened, I have no idea, and how people in Nassau let that stand is beyond me, because the state, the county executive, the state constitution says every county will have an elected sheriff. Every county outside of New York City will have an elected sheriff who's elected to a term. Yeah, but they had an elected sheriff when they became a county, and so it was very interesting how that, I don't know the history of how it happened, and I don't know why the people let that stand. So,
Since you were at the conference, what any specific laws did you come away with after going to the conference that you changed your mind?
well, I can tell you, the thing that, probably two things that really make me, what I really reevaluated, one was from reading the book and then going to the conference really reinforced it, is that I am 100% against doing checkpoints. And unfortunately, the way the federal government kind of wraps the state, a lot of the grant money that we get, local municipalities get to do enforcement, to hire cops, to have money for overtime, to have cops do special details, comes from the federal government, goes to the states, and then gets drizzled down. But they'll write in there that you have to do, as taking this grant, you have to do 2 checkpoints and this time period and this and that. And I'm not going to apply for grant money that's mandated to do. That's how they bully states into doing things that they don't have the authority to do. States do.
That's right.
States just do all too well. Well, not all states, but a lot of states just say, well, give me the money, give me the money, give me the money, give me the money. I think the gentleman over here is...
But I'm from one of the east end towns, Riverhead, and you get a complex issue with overlapping jurisdictions, stuff like that, in the state police, Riverhead, Suffolk County Sheriff's, Suffolk County PD. I mean, how do you manage all that with that overlapping jurisdiction, especially with Riverhead that has its own police?
Well, I look at me that my jurisdiction is the whole county. I'm the county sheriff. I've been here longer than anybody. That, you know, my jurisdiction, and the state police have statewide jurisdiction. But it's a lot through communication and the willingness to work together. And it's, you know, sometimes there are turf wars, but they've seemed to have gone by the wayside. But, you know, I look at it that, listen, I'm the county sheriff. I'm elected by everybody in the county. And if anybody asks me for help, whether it's in Riverhead Town, East Hampton, and, you know, Suffolk, I'm going to help them. And I do. And sometimes I get a little flack for that. We had the Village of Mastic Beach incorporated a few years ago, and they were having a tough time with some issues with in town with gangs and prostitution and some other things, and they felt they weren't getting the help that they were paying for through the county police. And you know, we went in and we helped them clean it up a little bit. And I get a lot of flack for that from legislators. But that's my job. So I work for you. If you ask for help, I'm going to help you. That's the bottom line. Sir?
I know you're, as you've admitted, is somewhat new to the subject of state sovereignty, 10th Amendment, and so on. And it probably will take some time to formulate a plan to fully back this up out of your office as it relates to activities in the street and the federal government involvement. But is that something that you're looking to put together and work on and further develop as it relates to big picture items like the Food Safety Act, the Second Amendment, gun rights, firearms freedom acts as they may apply, and many other things, big picture things, not these little street violations, but the big picture that affects.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment, and I think anybody that lives on the East End that deals with me for pistol license issues will tell you it's a big difference dealing with my office than dealing with the county police, or if they came from upstate or anywhere else.
Is that something that you're office?
Yeah, well, listen, I'm learning a lot here. I'm actually hoping they're going to do another one of these conventions in September. I don't know if they're going to let me go twice, but I almost feel like I have to because it was a lot to cram into one day, and there's a lot more questions. And I really, the most I got out of it was talking to, there were about five to seven sheriffs that did presentations. They're all from out west, and did presentations on issues they had in their counties and how they interposed on behalf of their constituents and how they were successful, and you know, how just the mounting pressure on these people brought them to, I mean, for some of these problems you wouldn't think they would go to the sheriff, but that's where they went, and that's the only place they found someone willing to step in and not just say, well, listen, go hire a lawyer, do this, go do that. So it's, yeah, it's you know, definitely still getting educated and working on some bigger issues.
On the Second Amendment, the Sheriff's Office has traditionally been much more amenable to gun rights and the right to carry concealed pistols. And so traditionally there have been no restrictions. Once you have a license, you have a full license to carry, because if you're licensed, if you've gone through the licensing procedure, it's shown that you're a person of good character, and there's no reason to put a restriction on it. Also, that the licensing procedure tended to be a lot easier in eastern Suffolk than here in western Suffolk, where the police commissioner has been very anti-gun. However, I've heard recently that restrictions such as premises restrictions or target and hunting only, or more difficulty in getting a full carry permit, a full carry license, have been coming out of your office, and it's a little disturbing.
There are, state law has restrictions on certain things. And,
no, it's actually not in the terms of the state law, but some of the local licensing authorities have imposed those, and our courts, being in a tradition of being anti-gun in this state, have upheld those restrictions. But those restrictions weren't being implemented in eastern Suffolk under the previous sheriff's office, and now they seem to be coming in.
Well, we're redoing, actually we're actually probably a little easier than the previous sheriff, and we are actually redoing our handbook on pistol license stuff, and we're reviewing it with the county attorney and stuff to see.
The county attorney tends to be.
Yeah, it doesn't know. It's an opinion. It's only an opinion I get.
Yeah.
But it's but we are redoing the whole thing and reevaluating.
Be careful about what you impose on.
Oh no, believe me.
I mean, for one thing, I don't know if you're familiar with John Locke. He was going to write a book, More Guns, More Crime, and he did a study of the statistics. Well, that's the title. That's the title he came up with after he did the study of the statistics. He intended to write More Guns, More Crime. He did the studies, and he said, "Oh, that's not true. The more guns that law-abiding people have."
I agree with you. I agree.
And in fact, our Sullivan Law was created by Tim Sullivan, a notorious gang leader. In those days, the way you won the Democratic nomination, you came in with your thugs and your gang. You beat up your opponents in the Democratic Party and threw them out the windows of the Democratic Club, and then you held a nomination, and then you would win.
Okay,
and
good enough.
his thugs were getting shot by their victims when they went to his district.
Good time. Perfect.
And so to disarm the victims, he came up with the Sullivan Law. And so in addition to being a highly corrupt legislator, a couple of years after he passed the Sullivan Law, he was committed to an institution and judged insane. Our gun law was designed to protect muggers, and it's been doing a good job at that since 1911.
No, I agree. I think if you take the guns out of the people's hands, only the bad people are going to have, because they're still going to get them, and they're going to be the only ones with them.
And then the victims are all helpless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a few questions here. You mentioned about earmarks with federal funds and what have you. I was just wondering if there was going to be any earmarks imposed on intra-resolution of 1397-2012 and 1398-2012, one of which gives the Sheriff's Department access to federally seized cars for undercover work for drunk driving, which could I say, I don't know why you need undercover cars for drunk driving.
No, I think those cars, no, they're not gonna be used they're gonna be used for undercover police work.
At the red bill, it says.
No, that-
And the other one is, I think one of them is just for general undercover.
Well, yeah, I think it's talking about why they were seized.
No, it said the specific purpose was for undercover work.
Yeah, the cars were seized through the federal asset forfeiture program. They were seized from drug dealers in California who were importing.
But I'm just
Marijuana.
wondering, are you going to abide by earmarks for that, or?
Well, they're not earmarks. They were.
But if there are earmarks attached to that.
No, there aren't any earmarks attached to it. No. They're free and clear. The
Uh,
legislature tried to put limits on how we can use them, which was not.
And if I could ask one more question
Yeah.
about the Second Amendment. Since your jurisdiction is all of Suffolk County, let's just say I don't live in the eastern towns. If I just come up to you because your jurisdiction is all of Suffolk County, and I live in, I have an address in Shirley, could I just come up to you with a pistol application and get a full carry permit, or?
State law, I don't know the section, says that, and it must have been changed. I don't know if they changed it when they formed the county police district or after that. At some point it changed where in state law it says that the sheriff does the 5 eastern towns and that the police do the 5 western towns.
Did you make a point to issue full carry permits or just restricted sportsman permits?
We probably have more sportsman permits than anything else.
But if some person just applied with no specific purpose for a full carry license?
Now, right now, you would have to, if you had a business, and you carry cash.
That's where
we're
other
doing.
people are having a quarrel
Right.
with you, because prior to your incumbency,
No, it's not
that
true.
was people were getting full carry.
I can show you, going back probably 3 or 4 sheriffs ago, how many full carry permits were given out.
Is it your intention to increase the amount of full carry?
We are looking at redoing our whole.
Yeah, because if you
how we
can't
do
carry
it.
the pistol, there's
Yeah.
not much point in owning
Right.
it.
No.
You can't protect yourself
Right.
if you don't have it with you. I mean, the last time I was at an armed robbery, my musket and bayonet were in the car, and I had to stand there like an idiot, pointing guns at everybody. And they didn't notice me as they came in. I could have taken them both out. I could tell by their guns and their ski masks that they're armed robbers.
All right.
Yes, ma'am?
I'm concerned very much about I would call it the paramilitarization of the police. Not only the federal agencies, and there are many of them, the alphabet soup of one. I mean, we had a gentleman, a black gentleman, arrested in front of his children because his wife, who had left him, had outstanding student loans.